When Honey Bits was born, the nurse took her into a different room. She put her beside a baby that looked a lot like her. The next day, the nurse picked her up and gave her to different parents. Honey Bits was crying a lot, but then the nurse took her away and apologized to the other parents. She told them that it was a coding mistake. She then brought her to her real parents. Honey Bits and the other baby are now friends, and to this day, she wonders if she was actually taken to the right home. But who knows?
Whenever Nixium's dad drank alcohol, he always gave the weirdest advice. One night he sat Nixium and his brother down and gave a grand speech about why they shouldn't masturbate. He said every sperm has a soul and that jerking off kills them. Nixium didn't want to be a murderer, so he asked his mum what he should do. Her advice was, never listen to anything your dad says.
In 7th grade, Tolop had a huge crush on a girl who was completely obsessed with sloths. Tolop struggled to get her to notice him, so when Halloween approached, he stayed up late every night making the perfect, and I mean perfect, sloth costume. When the day came, most of Tolop's friends came to school dressed as zombies, or werewolves, or other scary creatures. And you know what? Tolop, he just looked really out of place because he was just a cute little sloth. But his crush loved it. She was really impressed with all the detail on his costume. It was the perfect icebreaker.
The dumbest excuse Tolop ever heard was when he and his friend were cooking spaghetti. When the water was heating up and nothing else was on the stove, Tolop had to use the restroom. He went to the only restroom they had. When he came back, the pot was on fire. When they finished putting out the fire, Tolop asked his friend what happened. He said, I was in the restroom and the dog wanted to watch it. But Tolop was in the only restroom, and neither of them had a dog? The only possible explanation that would make sense is if his friend went out to a tree and he saw a stray dog there, but that's stupid.
A few years back, Spinal Palm had to do a skit for the high school pep rally in front of most of the students. He was looking forward to it, but unfortunately, it involved wearing costumes with ridiculously baggy pants. During the skit, the major part that Spinal Palm was involved in was just about to start. As he took his first step, he tripped on the pants leg of his costume, and he face-planted onto the court. As he looked up, the crowd of over 800 students went into an uproar of laughter. His face was beet red for the rest of the day.
One day, Nixium's cousin and his little brother came around to his house to play. They watched one of the Chucky movies, with a doll that comes alive and kills people. His little cousin got so scared he didn't stop following them around. Nixium and his cousin took one of his sister's dolls and changed it to look like Chucky, and placed it out the window by the kitchen. Before they let his little cousin go to the kitchen, they told him that Chucky was real, and he had called Nixium saying that he was coming for him. The little cousin was so scared he went to the kitchen to get a knife, then saw the Chucky doll at the window, and screamed until he fainted. He never liked dolls until eventually they told him it was a prank.
One day, Dolan stayed up way too late on a school night. When he woke up, he was very tired and running late for school. He stumbled into the laundry, threw on the first thing he found, and raced off to school hoping his teacher wouldn't yell at him. When Dolan arrived, everyone seemed to be staring at him. He went to class, took his seat, and his teacher immediately stopped the lesson to ask why he was wearing a skirt. Dolan looked down and realized he had accidentally put on his sister's skirt. He went bright red and asked if he could leave to change his clothes. His teacher wouldn't let him, so Dolan had to spend the whole class listening to terrible jokes about cross-dressers.
This one time, Robo went to the zoo to see the animals. While there, he decided to take a ride on the little kiddie train that went around to all of the grounds. It was a windy day and all the kids on board were having fun sticking their heads out the window. However, Robo noticed that one kid at the front looked a bit queasy, like he couldn't handle the motion. Robo watched him stick his head out the window and started barfing. Because it was so windy, the kid's vomit ended up flying back into the hair and faces of all the other kids poking their heads out. One night, Kyle was enjoying a quiet drink at an old redneck bar, but the couple next to him was really drunk and noisy. The guy kept going on and on about how much he loved his girlfriend. After a while, Kyle saw the guy get up and stumble over the dance floor. He grabbed the DJ's microphone and slurred his way through a completely spontaneous marriage proposal. Everyone in the bar was laughing at him, but they still raised their drinks and cheered. The woman said yes, so the DJ played the most appropriate redneck wedding song he had, Billy Idol's White Wedding. Kyle thought the whole thing was quite sweet. But he also doubted if either of them would remember it the next morning.
When Robo was 12 years old, her mom took her to New York City for her birthday. They spent the night in a nice hotel and walked around the city for hours. They stopped at a pizza shop for lunch and a man came up and sat across from them. Robo and her mom were uncomfortable, so they were about to leave when the man took Robo's hand. She got scared and tried to pull away, but he wouldn't let her go. He stood up, leaned right next to her ear, and told her, "Don't use the bathroom at the McDonald's across the street. They have a camera in each stall of the woman's bathroom." Robo asked him how he knew, and he said his daughter told him. Then he let go of her hand and left, right into the darkness.
When she was 8 years old, Ramona and her friend were in a fancy restaurant. Her friend said that she would give her $20 if she went into the bathroom with her and locked all the doors. Ramona agreed, so they went and locked all the doors by crawling under the partitions. They ran out of the bathroom and later, the employees asked if they knew who locked all the doors. Ramona's friend said it was her, pointing to Ramona. So Ramona had to go in and unlock all the doors. When she unlocked one of the stalls, she found a lady sitting on the toilet. She screamed so loud, the entire restaurant heard her. A year later, Ramona went to the restaurant again for a party, and the same lady as last time was there. She went up to Ramona and yelled, "Oi, why did you do that?" Ramona just ran to the bathroom. And no, she never got the $20.
On their last day in the army, Sweet Commando and his comrades decided to prank their senior sergeant during room inspection. They cleaned the toilet bowl and sterilized it, then took a packet of Nutella and smeared it on the inside of the bowl to make it look like a crap stain. When the senior sergeant saw the fake crap stain, he called Sweet Commando over and asked, "Would you mind telling me what this is?" Sweet Commando looked at it as though he was wondering what it was, when he scooped it up with his finger and stuck it in his mouth. After tasting it for a second, he said,
"Sir, that would be shit, sir."
The sergeant just looked at him in disbelief, with Sweet Commando trying hard not to break into laughter. However, everyone ended up rolling on the floor laughing. After telling their sergeant about the prank, he laughed at it too. That would actually never happen, and Sweet Commando would be destroyed if the sergeant saw that. Well, Spinal Palm's mind can be pretty chaotic. What would happen is that he would imagine many scenarios, worlds, and etc. in his head. If he imagined that he was talking to a character or characters from an anime or some other show, or if he was narrating several different things in his head or reenacting events in his head, or etc., Spinal Palm would end up whispering by accident. Nobody would notice it except his brother and his dad. Also, nobody would be able to make out anything on whatever he was saying. His brother would get all snippy at him saying, "Stop whispering, it's really annoying." His dad would say, "Who are you talking to? Do you have an imaginary friend?" This would piss Spinal Palm off every time his dad said that, because that wasn't the case at all. He would respond,
"I'm not talking to anyone."
This happens almost all the time.
When he was really young, Dolan's dad would hold his hand while they walked down the street. On occasion, his dad would playfully lift his hand in the air. One time, Dolan asked his dad why he would sometimes do that. Dolan's dad told him that there was a beaver-like creature that moved incredibly fast, so he would lift his hand every time the beaver approached so it wouldn't bite him. After his dad told him that, he believed it so much that there were a few times where he actually thought he saw the creature looming in the bushes. Dolan was 7 when his dad passed away, so he was never told the creature didn't exist. He continued to believe it until he was about 10 years old.
McKylem's grandpa lives out in the country in the mountains of Tennessee, where a lot of battles were fought in the Civil War. He took McKylem and his older brother along on a tour of one particular house. He said the house was built back in the 1830s and was renovated and remodeled, but eventually abandoned in the 1930s, and now it's just decaying and ruin. He told McKylem that back in the Civil War, a group of Union scavengers came up to the house in the night. At the time, a young woman lived there alone. The half-dozen soldiers each took turns raping her and then knocked her unconscious and burnt the house with her inside. The house was rebuilt with the only original part left being the basement. It changed ownership a couple of times, but McKylem's grandpa told him that no one ever lived there for more than a couple of years. So McKylem, his grandpa, and his brother went inside, and fortunately it was broad daylight. He was immediately struck by the sense that he shouldn't be in there. They explored the house, but McKylem couldn't get the feeling out of his mind until he came across the door to the cellar. He wanted to look like a tough explorer in front of his tough-as-nails grandpa, so he opened it. It was pitch black. He was suddenly hit with an overwhelming sense of absolute fear and panic. McKylam was silent, and he swore he could hear slow footsteps coming up the rotting wooden stairs. He shouted,
Oh, fuck no.
as he slammed the door and locked it. After calming himself down, he heard something behind the cellar door, pounding it violently. McKylam saw it shake and then ran out of the house.
Okay, this isn't super crazy, but it's still pretty crazy. I was laying in bed one time, and I turned around, and I swear I saw my boyfriend chewing off his toenails. Instead of clipping them or peeling them off with his fingers, he was chewing them off with his mouth. I was shooketh, and to this day, he still hates when I bring it up because apparently it really embarrassed him when I called him out for it.
Emoji has seen some weird shit working the late shift at McDonald's, but there's one memory that she has never forgotten. It was a quiet night, and Emoji was working the drive-thru window. There weren't many customers coming in, and by 2 o'clock, it started to get really foggy outside. Suddenly, Emoji noticed a strange old woman in white emerging from the fog. It was so dark it looked like she had no face. The woman, she walked slowly up the drive-thru to the service window, but instead of speaking, she made these weird moaning noises, like a whale call. The woman had been making really slow movements, until all of the sudden, she started pounding her fists against the drive-thru window. Emoji was terrified and ran into the supply room. Her manager came out and told the woman to leave, or else it would call the cops. Emoji is still haunted by the image of the woman eerily disappearing into the fog.
Salty Squid was walking down the street with his bike and saw a homeless man. Every day for the next week, the man stared at him as he walked by on the street. One day he saw the man in an alley. He felt bad for him, wanted to give him some money. He stepped into the alley and saw him chanting something as a goat's head sat on the table. Salty Squid made sure to never walk past that alley again.
Tolop had been with Spincess for at least 1 year. He wanted to say, "Is your body from McDonald's? Because I'm loving it." Instead, he said, "Is your body from McDonald's? Because it's fat and greasy." She started laughing because while he was saying that, she knew that most people might make that mistake.
Danger Dolan's math class had a substitute teacher one day while the original was away. Dolan and his classmates were told to do the assignment given and not to talk. Dolan had a few problems left on his paper when his pencil broke. Being calm and quiet, Dolan got up to sharpen his pencil when the teacher stopped him. He yelled at him loudly, "What are you doing? Sit down!" So Dolan sat back down with a still broken pencil. He literally just glared at the teacher, tapping his pencil. Hitler, the teacher, stomped over to his desk and asked, "Why aren't you doing your work?" Dolan said,
My pencil's broken.
The teacher said, "Maybe you'd like to sharpen your pencil in the principal's office." Still confused, Dolan just got up and left the room. He ended up getting detention for a week. Ever since the teacher did that to him, Dolan and his friends now refer to the teacher as Mr. Dick Tits. So Melissa and her friend were going to bake a cake. The thing about this was that they had a lot of different chocolate mixes and marshmallows. They tried to create a layer cake by putting the marshmallows at the very bottom and started putting the different mixes, including the browning mix, above the others. This was for a friend of theirs who was a chocoholic. She was addicted to Chocohol. They baked it, then took it out. Though the cake felt a little heavy, they thought it was fine and let it cool. Melissa and her friend went to their friend's house with the cake. It felt like it weighed a good 20 pounds. Melissa's friend put it on the birthday person's counter, but it fell and made a loud thud. The fun part for them was turning it upside down and getting the thing out. It took a few tries until it came loose. What ended up happening is that the marshmallows had caramelized on the very bottom, making it hard as hell. But it only got worse. Now was the time to cut it. They got a good, sturdy, heavy cutting knife and began to try cutting it. After a few attempts and breaking the knife from the handle, they got a serrated knife and began sawing it. Almost nobody could finish a single piece of it, as the sugar content and the chocolate taste of it would easily put any diabetic into a coma. The only reason Melissa finished one piece was because she was determined to not let a piece of food go to waste. They dubbed it death by chocolate with the density of plutonium. Ladybot was working at a low-rent gas station as a short-order cook and had to train a new employee. The new employee, Doopy, came in boasting about how she'd owned and operated 2 restaurants and managed 2 others. She proceeded to tell Ladybot that she didn't need her help at all because she knew how to cook. The start of the morning shift was awful. Doopy didn't know anything, not even the difference between a scrambled egg and an egg over easy. It was a nightmare, and the more Ladybot tried to help, the more resentful she became. An early lunch order came in, and it was a simple order that Ladybot assumed that Doopy would be able to handle without a problem. Boy, was she wrong. The order was for a grilled cheese sandwich and fries, extra crispy. Ladybot asked her before she started the order if she knew how to make a grilled cheese sandwich, and her answer was...
Yes, I'm not stupid.
So Ladybot watched the dumbest thing she's ever seen. Doopy walked over to the grill, grabbed the bread, and put it in the toaster, then proceeded to place 3 different types of cheese on the grill, burning the cheese badly. She put that mess together on the toast, then put the fries down to cook, all in that order, and it smelled about as good as it sounds. Of course, Ladybot had to intervene and fix the order, but it was truly magical to watch. So by the time Ladybot remade the sandwich, the customer's fries were cooked to perfection and all was good. Doopy complained to the owner that Ladybot was a bad teacher and didn't explain anything. She went on to explain that Ladybot was pushing her around, but it was all on camera to prove that Doopy was a straight-up idiot.
There was this one time that Melissa went to Sri Lanka for vacation. She went with her mother, father, 2 siblings, and a friend from school. It was the first day, and she went to the beach with her mother for a walk. Since Melissa lived in the city her entire life, they were looking up at the sky since they could see galaxies and a ton of stars. It was really dark since it was a small island civilization. Then suddenly, Melissa felt something wet touch her middle, ring, and index fingers. As she jumped, she looked to her left since that's where she felt the mysterious touching. Melissa looked at the bush beside her and saw a pair of glowing eyes looking at her for a split second before running away. She never saw it again and still has no idea what it was.
Every few weeks, Snoopy and her friend get together for a winking contest. This tradition has been going on for years, and in all that time, Snoopy has never won. Her friends are always saying she sucks at winking, so Snoopy secretly started training to get better. Every night, she lay in bed, winking at the ceiling to practice. When the next competition came around, Snoopy was sure she would win. She stood in front of the judges and thought, "This is it, the moment I've trained for." Snoopy pulled off her best wink, but her friend just laughed at her. Her friend said, "Sorry, Snoopy, you're just closing your eyes." And that was it. Another loss. To this day, Snoopy is still super competitive about winking. Princess Proton had been dating her boyfriend Spinal Palm for around 3 months. One day, he had lunch with her in the cafeteria. He asked if she wanted to come to his house after school because he wanted to talk to her about something. Princess Proton agreed, and when she got to his house, she heard him upstairs. She called his name and he quickly rushed down, looking as though he'd just climbed out of bed. She asked Spinal Palm what he wanted to talk about, but he screamed,
I'm breaking up with you, you fucking bitch!
Surprised, Princess Proton asked why. He answered,
Because you play fucking video games!
That was when a naked woman ran down the stairs.
That's not what it looks like.
Princess Proton smacked Spinal Palm in the face.
Honeybits worked at a Chinese restaurant along with her brother. Their customers could sometimes be terrible and extremely annoying. One time when Honeybits was working, she waited on a sexist customer. He said, "Hey babe, you want to go out with me? You're sexy as fuck." The customer tried to kiss her. He even tried to grab her in an inappropriate place. But thankfully her mom was also there that day. Honeybits was so upset that she called her mom over, who immediately gave the customer a harsh lecture. She said, "How dare you treat my daughter like that, you horrible beast! I should fuck you up right here, right now!" The customer never came back after that. Gergak's mom had to leave for 2 months when he was 14, so she hired a babysitter who brought her fat daughter. The babysitter was the worst. She never helped with homework, she never fed him or the dog, which was a German Shepherd. She even tried selling the dog for $15,000. Though she wouldn't feed Gergak or his dog, she always remembered to feed her daughter. She never even let Gergak call his mom. After a month, his best friend M. Kyle M. and his mom noticed how malnourished he was, so they invited him and his dog to sleep at their house. That is when M. Kyle M's mom called Gergak's mom to come home, which she immediately did. When the babysitter asked for payment, Gergak's mom responded by suing her for $50,000. Gergak lost 40 pounds during that time.
Civil Spider is a computer programmer with a very demanding boss. One morning, his boss told him to drop everything he was doing and go pick up his family from the airport. He said he couldn't go himself because he was needed back in the office. Civil Spider suggested getting them a taxi, but his boss laughed in his face. So, Civil Spider drove all the way to the airport in the tiny computer repair van. The shitty thing was, he only gave Civil Spider 20 minutes notice to do this, but the airport was a whole hour away. Civil Spider drove as fast as he could because his boss said there'd be consequences if his family had to wait too long.
Doopy was just walking down the street when some strange guy stopped her. He said that his local strip club shut down and he loved going to the place for the bare feet. That was already an odd way to start a conversation, but then he said he couldn't help but to notice Doopy's hot toes and the sandals she was wearing. The man offered Doopy $10 to let him sniff her feet for 30 seconds. Doopy said no, but he begged and offered $50. Doopy said she wanted $60, and it was a deal. She walked away $60 richer.
Legna and his mom went to New York to visit their family for Thanksgiving. As they were walking through Port Authority, an old homeless woman walked up to Legna and said, "You shall die and never leave." Legna wasn't sure what she meant by that, but he doubts even she knew what she was talking about. Not long after, Legna saw an old guy wearing a tutu while riding a scooter. Legna now thinks New York is pretty cool.
Hellden used to work as a barman for events at his local town hall. Working behind a bar, he saw a bunch of dumb things. But the one that stood out the most was on his first shift ever. A bunch of students who had booked a large party at the venue went on such a huge bender that they tried throwing up in a jug for water. They threw up so much that it overflowed and covered literally every inch of the table. They were barred from the building and fined for the tablecloth and jug, which had to be thrown away.
Shima has a cat named Zaffy who is 3 years old, a gift from her boyfriend and his mother. When Zaffy was 7 months old, she was sent to stay at Shima's boyfriend's house so that the cat could learn how to chase mice, many of which were terrorizing the house. The next day, the family woke up to see Shafi tossing a half-dead mouse back and forth. Then, out of nowhere, Shafi just started teabagging the mouse over and over. The mouse was barely alive and had one eye popped out. Shima, her boyfriend, and his mother didn't know what to do.
During Slapped Ham's senior year of high school, he got Saturday detention where he had to sit in a classroom and do homework from 8 to 3:30. The reason, according to the school, was that he'd missed one day too many without providing a note as to why. However, Slapped Ham had turned in a note the day he returned to school stating he had recently lost his grandfather and was gone for 5 days. The school officials told his mother they were sorry for the mix-up and that the note had been filed wrong. But they never personally told Slapped Ham that they were sorry for wasting his time. This was 3 weeks after he'd already done the Saturday detention. That's one Saturday of his life that Slapped Ham will never get back.